Fisher. I'm the district ranger here in Truckee, and I took over for Joanne Robique, who retired back in 2019. Before 2019, I had been working in the Lake Tahoe Basin. I was the special uses program lead down there. Did a little bit of work for the Washington office as well on permit reform and how we can get more outfitter guides in the National Forest. So recreation is a big part of my career and what I've been doing. I've been with the agency for about 20 years. I've had a chance to work San Bernardino, the regional office, the Inyo National Forest, the Lake Tahoe Basin, and now the Tahoe National Forest. So had a chance to move around quite a bit, but again, for most of my career, recreation has been a big passion of mine, and in coming here to Truckee was a big reason why I really wanted to get this position and why I enjoy coming to work so much. So you probably heard the Tahoe National Forest, we have two main priorities. Veg management, so reducing the number of trees, improving the condition of our forest health, creating more defensible space around communities. But public services and recreation is a very close number two. It is right there in terms of the two pillars. And in Truckee, that takes the form, in my opinion, and I think for the opinion of all of us, is improving access to the National Forest. I don't think it's any surprise to any of us that our trailheads and our access points to the Truckee Ranger District are not where they need to be. We've taken a lot of efforts lately. My colleagues, Teeny Hood is our public services staff officer, came behind John Groom. And over here, Katie Mansfield is our trails manager. We have been working a lot on trailhead design and improving places like Cabin Creek. We're trying to brainstorm around what Sage Hen Creek trailhead might look like. But the pinnacle of it all is probably here at Donner Summit in Castle Valley, and what it represents for access to a really unique backcountry ski location, but also potential trailhead and access point for things like Pines to Mines, Hole in the Ground Trail, potentially connectors to the north. Frog Lake is just over the other side, so lots of opportunity, but we know that it is really underdeveloped and underserving the access that we all are looking for. So really that gets us to this project, and we've sought the assistance of a number of partners to help us design a more comprehensive trailhead that's going to get at summer and winter use, how we can, of course. There's going to be some limitations we talk about tonight. And motorized and non-motorized access. So it's important that we check all of those boxes. We don't have, so often when we start a project, sometimes maybe in the Forest Service, we feel like we've probably gotten 75, 80% of the way there. And when we ask for public comment, we have a sense for where that comment is going to help provide some additional detail. I want to offer up that what we're going to share with you tonight is we are very much still looking for feedback on what an appropriate trailhead at Castle Valley looks and feels like to you. Access is an issue. The Caltrans right-of-way, how we get to it, these are all things that we need to think through, and we really use your comments and your assistance to get there. So I hope you're coming to tonight with really an open mind. We need your feedback, we need your ideas, and I think through tonight's presentation, some little workshopping that we're going to get some good feedback from you all. So with that, I want to turn it over to...
If you could step just a little bit out of the projector.
Oh, yes.
And we wanted to run through the team members.
Oh, of course. So I mentioned the partnership involved here tonight. So from the Forest Service, I'm Jonathan. Teeny Hood is the new Public Services Staff Officer. This is the first time many of you are probably meeting Teeny. TDLT is a big part of our work here. They've been specific funders for some of this work. South Yuba Citizens League. So Circle has been a long-time partner with us, mostly on the west side of the Tahoe National Forest. But because Donner is at the headwaters of the Yuba, we have an opportunity to partner with Circle at this location. We've done some great work at Van Norden with Circle, so this felt like a logical extension. Couldn't be more pleased to be working with them. And then we have an engineering group out of GHD, and then our meeting facilitator tonight is Austin, and I think between all of us, we've got the right minds in the room, and any questions you can think of, we've got the right folks to answer those. Great. That's it. I'm going to turn it over to Austin.
All right. Thanks, Jonathan. So a couple things I'm going to run through. First of all, what we're going to do for the next hour and a half. We're here until 6:30. If anyone needs a restroom, they're downstairs, so feel free to get up and move around. So a little overview just provided by the district ranger. In a minute, we'll turn to Circle staff. They're going to provide an overview of what the project is and what some of the constraints and opportunities are to get everyone on the same page. And I saw a couple of people taking pictures. We can make this presentation available on the project website, so it'll all be there if you want some more information, okay? So after the presentation, if anyone has any questions to clarify what was presented, please, we'll have some time. But that's really to clarify what was presented, not to like get into your opinion on it. We're going to transition right after that into sharing of your ideas and thoughts around the project. And that's why you're sitting around these tables, and we're hoping people will mix it up. We've got a worksheet that we want each person to individually answer a couple quick questions. And then we have a map of the project area. And we're hoping each table can put some thoughts together and maybe come up with some ideas, some concerns, some suggestions for that. And each table will have 30, 35 minutes to work. And then we'll have each table report out what they come up with, what were some of the disagreements, what were some of the agreements that each table had, and share those ideas. And then after hearing from each table, we'll go back to the district ranger to wrap up with some of the next steps and where this project goes and what the timeline is. And then lastly, as people get up and on your way out, we've got some flip charts that we'll put up, and I'm going to pass out some sticky dots, and you get to vote with these dots under some of the topics that you feel is most important to you. And so that'll be a nice visual way to capture sort of the thoughts of everyone in this room. And then we'll summarize everything that went down here in a memo that'll be up on that project website. Okay? So really looking for some interaction and get us out of here by 6:30. So to get a sense of who all is in the room with us tonight, I've got a couple questions. By show of hands, who lives within 40 miles of this project? All right, excellent. A lot of people that are knowledgeable then that have been there. Who has visited Castle Valley during the summer? Okay. How about during the winter? Right. All right. So getting a lot of use up there. We got the right people in the room. Have you been up there within the last year? Cool. I just got back. I hiked 2 miles up there and ran into a bear, and it was pretty cool, but it's pretty hard to navigate in the winter up there. But really, really amazing spot. So we're curious. Is your preferred form of recreation human powered? Skiing, walking? Okay. What about motorized or mechanized, being on a bicycle?
That's human powered.
True, it is human powered, but as we know, it's considered mechanized, right? It's a piece of equipment, so that's why I have that there. Have you ever shown up at the trailhead there and struggled to find parking because it was so crowded? Okay. A lot of people. All right, so good. We've got people in the room that are familiar with the site and have some first-hand experience. So I'm asking for everyone's help tonight. You know, I know that there's some folks in here with differing opinions about use in the area, and that's fine, okay? But we're here to be civil and to work together. So with that, you know, let's use common conversational courtesy. It's okay to be funny, but not at the expense of anyone else. I mean, these are basic things we learn in elementary school, hopefully. But I just want to reiterate them for everyone. And one that I really find important is, if you have a cell phone, can you turn it on silent or buzz or something, or throw it on the ground? That's what I just did, and I don't know where it went. But let's not have it go off and ring and be annoying, right? And be comfortable. If you have to go to the restroom, please help yourself. We got a jug of water back there and some glasses if you get thirsty. Let's appreciate everyone's opinion and work constructively in a small group to come up with some ideas for this site. So that's what we're going to do tonight. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Circle to walk us through this presentation. Just use the arrow there.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
I'll do that.
Stand here. All right, so my name is Aaron Zettler-Mann. I'm the Interim Executive Director and Science Director at Circle, the South Yuba River Citizens League. And I'm just going to talk for a couple of minutes, big picture overview about Circle and sort of why we're here and why we're involved in this project. This is Circle's 40th anniversary year. We've been in the Yuba, fighting and protecting the Yuba for 40 years this year, and we work throughout the Yuba. So all the way up to the Sierra Crest and down to the confluence with the Feather. We're working on meadows, We're working on salmon, forest health, fire resiliency, water advocacy, all kinds of different work throughout the watershed. And we really are a community-based organization who tries to use sort of best available science to inform our advocacy, our restoration, our monitoring, and all of the work that we do. And that's really how we think about this project and our role in this project. Because this Castle Peak, Castle Valley drains into Van Norden Meadow just across the road there, which we've spent a lot of time and worked with a lot of partners in this room on the restoration of. We feel attached to that meadow and water quality impacts flowing sort of from the Castle Valley into Van Norden Meadow, but just more generally, really, as we continue to work on our watershed and think about our watershed, the interaction between recreation and water quality and environmental health, more broadly ecosystem health, becomes more and more important and more crucial for us to engage in and be really proactive in trying to manage things like parking, trying to manage things like drainage, the movement of invasive weeds, wetland health, because all of those things and how they interact with recreation has a direct impact on the health of meadows, water quality, threatened and endangered species, fires. We think about users up in these sort of more remote and wilderness areas. And so that's really what we're doing here today and sort of how we got involved and why we feel important about a project that, you know, isn't as traditionally restoration focused as a lot of our other work throughout the watershed. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our project lead on this, Keisha Weissman, who's going to talk really in depth about the project.
All right, and I've got my assistant Rose who will be doing next slide. So, hi everyone, I'm Alicia Wiseman, the Headwater Science Program Director at South River Citizens League. So thanks for coming out to talk about Castle Valley. We'll jump right in. Next slide. Okay, so just a little outline of the presentation that we're going to go over. So we're going to start with just a basic high-level spatial orientation. It seems like maybe not that necessary since almost everyone's been here, but just to make sure we're all on the same page. We're going to talk about our funding sources and how that plays into our project scope and project goals. We're going to go through a timeline, where we're at today and where we're headed. I'm going to talk about some of the constraints and opportunities associated with the project site. And then we're going to show you our existing concept design before we make time for questions and break out for the breakout groups. Okay, so it seems we all know we're currently here, Soda Springs, just a little bit east of here, and north of Highway 80 is the proposed Castle Valley Trailhead we're going to talk about today. So it's entirely on Tahoe National Forest property. So this project has been funded, the Tahoe National Forest received funding from an OHV funding source, and we've also received match funding from Truckee Land Trust. As part of our project scope, kind of just get an idea of what we plan to do with this project, we plan to develop engineered designs for a parking lot and trailhead area. So when I say engineered designs, that comes in three parts. So there will be conceptual designs that we'll go over today. Then we'll move on to 65%, and then ultimately final or 100% designs. Throughout this process, we plan to conduct a public outreach. So we're starting that now. And then from there, we'll move on to an environmental review process. So we'll end up with final documents, both CEQA and NEPA. Our goals for this project are to reduce human health and safety concerns associated with lack of parking at the site. Also to reduce environmental impacts. So currently there's a lot of erosion, there's not any infrastructure and there's a lot of use, so this is a big interest of ours. And then we hope to improve user experience for both motorized and non-motorized, so that's over snow vehicles and off-highway vehicles, and so for both winter and summer use. Quick overview of our timeline. A little brighter in here, nice big windows, I hope you can all see. Currently we're in June, so we're currently in our concept design phase. One thing I want to just make sure everyone is aware of as we go through our concept designs is everything right now is based on existing constraints that we have determined using like the tools at our disposal today. And so today the tools at our disposal are Nevada County's land ownership layer and DEM to verify topography. But we actually need to get in the field and validate these things, right? So we need to make sure where wetlands and riparian areas are. We need to truth the right-of-way where Caltrans property is. And so all that's going to happen this summer and be done by fall. And so as we transition from our concept designs to our 65% designs, we really want to take the feedback that you provide today, combine that with the real data that we're going to collect in the field this summer, and transition to the next step in our designs. We expect to have 65% designs by next spring, 2024. We'd like to bring those back to you guys and receive more feedback as we transition to our final designs. The final designs we expect to have done in summer of 2024, and we expect to have final NEPA and CEQA documents in winter of 2025. Okay, so this is a planning grant that we've received, so we're really focusing our efforts on making sure we're planning it correctly, right? So we're not ready to build, tomorrow. We're not going to have a parking lot this summer. Okay, continue. So some of the constraints that we're currently working with that might seem a little pedantic, but I just want to go ahead and say it. We're constrained by our project scope, by our funders. Not everyone's going to get everything they asked for, so sorry, I have to be the bearer of bad news there. Also, land ownership and right-of-ways. We can only work on the Tahoe National Forest land here. Slope and topography, this is probably the biggest one at this site. There's not a ton of usable space, right? So we're going to do our best to maximize that space. I'm actually pretty pleased with the amount of space that we're given, just having been there and now seeing where we're at. Then we have wetland and riparian areas that we'll need to avoid. Large rocks and trees, if we want to retain features, we'll work around those. And lastly, drainage, which I want to get into a little more in the next slide, so that's not just like some abstract concept I'm talking about. So with drainage, we kind of have two main concerns. So we don't want to go into a site and influence where water is flowing, especially when you're at kind of the crest of the watershed. We don't want to cause water to flow in an entirely new direction. As you guys live up here at Serene Lakes and some of the flooding that was going on after these rain and snow events. This is really important. So we want to retain existing flow paths, and we're going to do everything we can to build in a way that we preserve these features. On top of that, when we're constructing an impervious surface, we really have to think about stormwater. So that's front and center in our minds, and the engineering firm that we're working with, they specialize in this, so we're really confident that they're going to be able to do a great job with this, and you'll see in our concept designs, it takes up a substantial amount of space. But this is a side view of a bioretention facility, which is kind of something that we'll likely model, where you basically have native plants, and essentially you just allow the water to slow down and flow through kind of a manufactured wetland type thing to reduce downstream water quality impacts. But we also have lots of opportunities for the site that are within our scope. First off, a day use area. I've got two examples here. You guys more a fan of the open one or the crowded one? I know I have my preference, but those are some examples of things that we would love feedback on. Bathrooms and signage, we do currently plan for this. Note that we will definitely need to stay within the Tahoe National Forest's existing design constraints for bathrooms and signage, but we do have a little bit of flexibility. Do we want 2 stalls? Do we want a stall with like an emergency shelter? Things of that nature. Then we have natural features, so even from the digital imagery, we can tell and being out there, there's some huge rocks, right? So we have the opportunity to retain those and maybe even enhance the site historically, whatever we want to do with those features. So that's something to think about. Okay, so getting into our concept designs, which are going to be on the next slide, but on this slide, I want to take a minute to just orient us. So this isn't coming in great and green because it's so bright in here, but you can see the green there. So that's important for us to look at because I wanted you guys to imagine driving in, right? So you're coming off I-80, going up this off-ramp, and we found a lot of nice, relatively flat space where that green outline is. So we're pretty stoked on the slopes in that area. They're really conducive, and so right now we have that set as our existing usable space. Now again, we need to get out there this summer and really validate all those things, but this is a good starting point for us. Currently, these are the concept designs. Nothing is set in stone. These are not 65 designs. These are just giving you guys something to look at. For us, thinking about what's possible, we have to get it on paper. So I want to thank GHD, and we've got Teresa now who's been working on this. So this is where we're at right now. Some features I want to point out. To you, note that we're sort of, looking at it at this horizontal orientation now, just for ease. But as you come in, we've got good flow coming kind of to the right around the parking lot. We've got 80 regular stalls in this image. We have 12 trailer stalls. One of the things that we are running up against is in this relatively narrow zone and have enough space for trailers to fully turn. If we add pull-through spots, we significantly reduce the total amount of spots. Okay, so right now we do not have pull-through spots shown. If that is something that the community would like to see, just note that it does reduce the spots, and we can talk through how much it reduces it by. Some other features, we're retaining connection to existing trailheads, both to the left of your screen and down to the bottom there. We're retaining natural swale features. You can see kind of the blue with water. We've got our stormwater basins cascading down to natural drainage features. We have restrooms, kiosks and picnic areas, a place for trailers to back in and load and unload. There's a pretty big rock feature we think we're seeing that we'd like to retain. Also, this tree island kind of in the middle is useful to retain kind of natural vegetation and allow flow in the parking lot, but can also serve as a place to pile snow. So those are some things that we've been thinking about. In this current sort of diagram where we have the space dedicated, the slopes look conducive here. And so if we were to think about widening this, it just doesn't seem like that's going to work given the slopes. So that's something to think about. And with that, we'll take your questions, and I probably won't be able to answer all of them, so we have other people to help as well.
Yeah, so based on what you've heard, if there's any clarifying questions for either Jonathan from the Forest Service or Alicia, we'd love to hear those. And then I'll give some instructions for what we're going to do in small groups. So yeah, in the back, and then we'll come over
Just
here.
for orientation, can you point out, like right now there's a gate, where that gate is on that?
Can maybe go back to the other one for a second? So do you see this green out? I know you're pretty far back, Lori. Do you see this green outline? I know.
Here,
It's
if you
so
go
bright
if you go
here.
forward, we can point out.
Yeah.
What are the gates? You want to go? Rose, want to go forward
You
one?
got it? Yeah.
It's neighborhood here.
That's the gate
Okay.
now.
No.
That's why the orientation is like helpful. North is this way, so go back. So the gate to the road is right here. Oh, you're talking about
The upper gate. Okay.
the upper gate. Okay. This is the gate that's going to that. The upper gate is right here. Okay, so Aaron was.
All right.
Aaron was correct.
Everybody gets a point.
Too many gates.
Yep.
Too many gates. Yeah, and a weird orientation. When you flip it on its side, that's why we included that one, because it's hard to figure out up from down. Okay.
Given some of the limitations with the site, in particular for trailers, which I can definitely see from the size, is there any ability on the road coming in to possibly have a shoulder that can be parked on for people with trailers?
So one thing I'll note is that currently where we start the designs here, that line is based on Caltrain's right-of-way.
Okay.
So technically, as it currently stands, I think the answer is no. Even though people are already doing it now, when we formalize this, we really are trying to keep it all in Forest Service.
Okay, so there won't be any improvement to that since that's on Caltrain.
Unless we go out and validate that that is Forest Service property, and that, which could be the case, but not likely.
Yes, sir.
Probably Forrest's first question. This proposed parking area won't result in a change in closure areas between non-motorized use and motorized use?
No, this won't change the subpart C process for the over-snow vehicle.
So unless the forest plan updates, Castle Valley will still be the closure area, and to the left will be the motorized access?
I don't remember the exact,
Yeah, it's to the east and
yeah, and that document's close, and I know it's been close for years. Let's just say I anticipate mixed use continuing up in that, so this won't change any of those efforts.
But in some way, this is two trailheads, in the sense that there's access to the non-motorized area. And like right now, people all access this area through the single trailhead.
Yep.
And you know, that access road is shared with snowmobiles as well as, in the winter, I'm in the winter, with skiers and snowmobilers. But this will change that a little bit, move that up a little further, and non-motorized users could go both directions, but motorized users are only going that way, right? Is that what the way I'm interpreting this?
It's, yes.
As we have it right now.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah, can you clarify why both NEPA and CEQA is required if it's all on federal land?
Yeah, so because a lot of these dollars come through state agencies, they require that CEQA is completed. Unfortunately.
So on that question, when this original project was approved years ago, the NEPA should have been done, so the SEEP was the new provision. So where's the difference?
We will do a new NEPA. So that's reflective of these designs that we finish. So our final designs and our 65% designs will inform a new NEPA document that's inclusive of everything that we finalize with
So
this
this is-
scope.
Okay, so this is altered enough to warrant a new NEPA analysis.
I think so, right, Jonathan? I mean,
There was no NEPA ever done at this site for Trailhead.
What, okay.
so yeah, we're definitely NEPA is front and center. And then, yeah, the CEQA will work on those sort of in tandem, which is the more efficient way to get that done.
This is one of those locations where I'm not actually particularly concerned with the environmental analysis. Our challenge here is engineering and layout, and how do we build a site that responds to existing and potential new use.
So, I mean, I don't think the trailer pull-through parking is as important as the trailer degressing to be able to make these turns. Like, everybody can back up and then make the turn, but coming into it, if it's super tight around that rock formation, if people are parking there, that's where trailers are gonna have the problem to making that clearance.
So again, I want to reiterate, if people have questions,
Oh, okay.
yeah, we'll say, that's a great comment, and
Oh,
it'd be
okay.
good for you to work out in a small group and come up with some design ideas to address that. Okay, coming back, a couple of hands here, sir, and then over to you.
This is great, and I think 80 parking spaces plus room for 12 trailers will certainly help. But given the number of people that come up here to recreate, I'm wondering whether you have any estimate of what the impact will be on, say, current use levels. Is this a 5% solution? I don't think it's 100%, because the place is certainly overrun in the winter, for example.
That's a good question. I know Katie has been doing some kind of photography there to try to get a better idea for winter use. I don't know if you want to add anything there. I mean, I think what it boils down to is the site capacity due to topography just may not, we won't get optimal, we won't, if people increase by 20%, we may not get there.
Coming around to you, yeah.
Did you want to, wait, Katie, do you want to say?
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I haven't compiled all that use data yet. This was it was a different sort of winter too, because it was essentially like a vertical drop, to get up to the snow, just with snow plowing and whatnot. So so far I haven't seen a lot of OSV use, but I think just because it was so difficult to even access that site.
We couldn't unload or
get up that bank.
Yeah, like
It was non-existent for 2.5 months.
We had a trailhead counter installed. We had a trailhead counter installed at Castle for the last 3 years, and we're probably at over 200 users a day in the peak of winter on the non-motorized side. So it fell off quite a bit after COVID, obviously. But yeah, like our experience is there's no way you're ever going to build enough trailhead to meet demand in the Tahoe Basin, and I would hope that no one in this room wants that amount of asphalt down anyway, because it's unsustainable. So it's going to be a partial solution, right? And then we just try to help demand with microtransit, with public transit, carpooling, whatever we can.
Thank you.
We'll come back to you and then we'll come over here to the front.
Yeah, so, still curious about how the winter traffic management, since it's not finished for the Tahoe, you know, how, if it changes the current allocation for use for winter, of course, we're talking about, you know, how, I'm guessing you see this as adaptable, I don't know, is it adaptable? How are those two married? If
For
you
the-
can even answer that.
Well, it's, all I can say is that I would continue to anticipate both motorized and non-motorized use. And that's as good as we can get, I think, for what we're trying to design here. This location needs to continue to cater to both. That's the vision going forward.
Sir?
Earlier you mentioned you were limited on the width of it due to the slope. Is that a limitation due to concerns about water drainage and runoff, or is that a concern because of the cost of the engineering in order to make it viable for being wider?
I think both, for sure. Teresa, is there anything you want to add to just feasibility? I mean, one thing I'll say is that in the CEQA process, if you were hauling a lot of material, they get you pretty good on just your greenhouse gas emissions, things of that nature. So I think also the kind of feasibility also plays in. Anything else you want to add on that?
Sorry. Hi, Teresa Garrison. I was stuck in traffic, so apologies for being late. But I am with GHD, and so we're the designers that have been hired by Circle to help with this design. And so we were talking about the slopes too. So this entrance zone here is roughly a 12% slope. Those of you who have truck trailers, that's a pretty hard slope. And if you were in a car and trying to open your door to get out, the door would come and hit you on the side. So this is an area that we are concerned about. It does start to flatten out over here. And then with an aerial image, you can see there's a lot of granite in this zone up here. And then I started to draw it over here too. So there's kind of a granite limitations over here. So it does play into that cost of engineering and design, trying to balance usable slopes, being able to maintain the drainage paths and natural features, and then usable space, usable slopes. Does that help answer that question?
Chris?
Yeah, I understand this clarification, that the scope of work doesn't include work in the state right of way. But is this project going to result in the elimination of on-street parking on that access road as part of sort of the overall intention, or is it just sort of being left alone to be used the way it's being used now? In other words, will that parking remain, or are you just not going to say anything about it and then we just sort of continue to use it?
Yeah,
I want
I'll
to
refer to
piggyback on
Jonathan.
that with the existing snow park that's on the other side.
Oh, wait, say that again?
I want to piggyback on that with the existing snow park that's
Yeah.
designated on the other side.
Totally. I'll let
Parking on the surface streets that are outside the Tahoe National Forest are outside of the scope of this decision.
I'll also say that conversations with Caltrans are ongoing, so we're trying to work with them through this process. So we don't have an answer to that question yet, but we are trying to see what they are willing to do with us.
I think the snow park, or the snow park extension,
Yeah, this should have no impact to the snow park and what they're doing over there.
the snow park parking, yeah.
Permitted.
Yeah.
Come over here and then to you, Chris.
So once this, let's just say this all gets built and it's put into place in a year or two or from now, it's in place, who'll be keeping the road clear? Is it a Caltrans operation, is it a Tahoe Forest operation? So it's not usable unless we can get to it.
It's a great question, and it's one of the biggest constraints and questions we have. we had talked in the initial phase, man, does this thing does it need a shelter and a place that an operator can stay overnight? Do we have partners who help us maintain this, who might already be interested in the area? That's a big question. And at 12% grade, as you just heard, what does that do for access? What does that do for safety? I don't want to steer the conversation tonight because this is so early in the process. I really want to just kind of generate your ideas and your thoughts as well. But that's a big one.
Okay, so just a couple more questions. I want to have time for the rest of the work. So, Chris, where'd you have your hand up? Yeah, then we'll come back to you.
I think this question's probably just answered. The question is this envisioned to be a snow park, or is it too early to say, or is that off the table?
I don't want to shape, again, the conversation too much. I don't think it's an initial vision of ours that this would be a snow park. The snow park across, the existing snow park will remain, and, it needs its own 10 and 11 care and thoughts about how to go forward.
So based on that, the following question is, has there been consideration given to pedestrian access to this trailhead? Because if there's a snow park that remains across the way, and this fills, there will be a considerable number of people trying to access it on foot.
Yeah, we've definitely talked about it thus far, and again, that's, us getting in touch with council. It might be a little bit out of the scope of this project in terms of us physically doing it, but in terms of getting the conversation started and seeing about how we can get that as far along as we can. Yeah.
Okay, you had your hand up, but
Will it require like a permit parking? Paid parking?
Again, if the community is telling the agency, look, the operation and maintenance of this, the potential for snow park, snow play participants to kind of overwhelm this and defeat the very nature and purpose of it, we really think a concessionaire, someone who can manage a site, charge a fee, do things a little differently is an absolute requirement. That's the kind of feedback I want to hear. Or maybe the feedback is, no, we don't want to pay, we're getting nickel and dime for everything else. It should be a non-fee site, agency should run it, operate it. I don't want to weigh in too strongly here because that's what I'm hoping to hear a little bit, of your thoughts on.
Yeah, and our worksheets have a few nice blank areas. That's kind of write whatever you would like to write.
all right, let's see if we can wrap up the Q&A with the hands that were up over here. Yes?
I have a question.
We'll come up to you. She had her hand behind you. I'll come to you, sir.
Do you have an idea historically or recently what percentage is motorized and non-motorized? And then also the snow park on the south side of 80. Is the snow park just the surface street you're talking about, or is it the end of the PCT trailhead park?
Technically, the snow park is only essentially the parking lot behind the sign. Cars parking along that road do so by simply the good grace of our friends at Oriole and Auburn Ski Club.
Wait, on the east side of the freeway?
Correct. That road is not National Forest.
And what about at the end where the PCT?
That is National Forest, yeah. So there's that entrance sign, essentially behind that is the start of the National Forest.
And we use that for snow playing there?
Yes.
But that's not snow park?
That is a California snow park where people conduct snow play.
But, the percentage right now is split between motorized and non-motorized. Does anybody know what that is?
I don't have an estimate on that. Do you have anything?
I don't have it yet, but yeah, like I said, this was a special winter, and
This
motorized access was severely.
I mean, I know it goes up and down, especially as it poses.
Yeah.
On that same note, what percentage of the building of the project is for motorized funds?
So, the green sticker program that is funding the majority of the project is basically, in order to apply, you have to be planning for motorized use. So it doesn't mean that we can't plan a site that works for both. It just means that we cannot completely exclude that. It's like completely out of question in terms of this scope.
Okay, hold on, sir.
I have a question for Teresa. Do you have live real-time pictures of this site?
So we're doing a lot of that this summer. So this summer, we're going to be collecting a lot of our constraint data, and then the Tahoe National Forest has been collecting some winter data, and we're seeking, like, you, sir, that just provided that, please share, we'd love any other data we can get.
And so this is funded through the Green Sticker Program and grants matched equally?
So it's a grant through the Green Sticker Program. It's an OHV grant, and then the Truckee Donner Land Trust has provided a generous match as well.
And they're matching the Green Sticker?
Yes.
Okay.
So, final two questions. Yeah.
What's the cost of this?
If I can email it to you, that would be better. Off the top of my head, I don't know. So, because we are hired by the Tahoe, and the Tahoe got the grant, so we're hired, so I don't have like those numbers on the tip of my tongue.
And do you mean construction costs?
Just the overall cost of putting it together?
So the planning grant that we have now is the number I can email you, but we won't know the cost of construction until after we're at a 65% design phase, and then we can get quotes from construction firms.
Last question.
So, will the percentage of spots, trailer spots be, the same percentage as the amount of OHV funds that we're getting? Because I see a lot of car spots, but not many OHV spots. My understanding is we're paying for a lot of this project.
So one thing I would say is that due to the size of trailer, there's just only so many that can be put in there. So this entire could not be trailer parking because of turnaround, because of so many things.
A couple of other thoughts that we've had that are great questions to think about, suggest, and work with is, that ratio, the pull through versus back out. You want easier in, easier out. Other things that we've talked about as we've been trying to formulate these sort of preliminary concept designs is, not everybody's pulling a trailer. A lot of people have snowmobiles or whatever it is on the back of their truck, and so do we want to oversize the single vehicle spaces to make it more conducive to, full-size trucks with a couple of snowmobiles on it?
We still need a place to put a ramp out and pull
Yep.
out.
Yeah, we have that in
And
this
we're thinking of-
illustration.
Yeah, we're thinking about that on this sort of east side, knowing that this is north, that's a bit of a loading, unloading zone. But those are the kinds of questions, the kind of feedback, the kind of input that we need and are asking for.
Like the ratio of regular parking spots to trailer. Knowing that just because you put 100%, that's probably not physically possible in this site, just, things like that. And also the money spent technically does not dictate the percentage of spaces. I just want to make sure I say that.
So that's a perfect segue into what we're asking everyone here to do, which is to work through some of those numbers and come up with your ideas for what works in this space. And so we could go ahead on the slide too. So here's what we're going to do. About 35 minutes. And those that came in just a little late, welcome. You're welcome to come in. There's a bunch of seats here. We're going to have people sitting around each table. So wherever there's an empty seat, I encourage you to take it. And what I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to hand out Theos, if you could pass those around, and then one of the worksheet, one of the maps on each table. So here's what we're asking each table to do. First of all, get to know one another. Who's sitting at your table, right? Just do around the table. Who are you? Share something to get to know one another a little bit. Identify someone at each table who's willing to speak up and share what the conversation was at your table when we do the report out. Then these worksheets that are floating around, this is the same set of questions that are on the project website right now. There's already been like 50 responses. Has anyone in this room completed that survey online? Okay, thank you. You don't need to complete the worksheet. It's the same questions. If you haven't done the online, take a couple minutes and complete this worksheet. If anyone needs pens, we'll pass them out. We've got a whole bunch of extra pens. I'll get them around. Okay? So let me finish the instructions. Heads up, folks. Listen up. I need your attention. Finish the worksheets individually. Before you leave tonight, you'll leave them in the box on the back table. right? We're going to compile them, we'll share the results. Then, after you've done the worksheet, work as a group and use that map that's there and talk through. Discuss the project constraints that you heard. Discuss the opportunities that you heard. And at your table, try to come up with a proposal. What should the look of that site be? What should it include? And put whatever you want in there. And then we'll ask each group to report out. What did you agree on? What did you disagree on? All right? Have fun. We're at about 35 minutes.